Hello and welcome back to Métropole Grid. My name is Andre. Thanks so much for tuning in. And today we have a progression of op lists that chart my course of playing corporation within the startup format for the last couple of weeks. And it all starts here with a deck I put together called Cyboat Used Confusion. And all these decks, mind you, are op lists in the startup format, and op is the new corporation, the new Wayland identity within Midnight Sun. And this, mind you, is very easily one of my favorite corporations of all times. There's a lot of text here, but in short, what it says is that once per turn, when you trash a res card, you can go get a card that costs one less than the trash card and res it, install it, paying no credit costs. So largely free. And that's just a really fun and flexible ability. Again, there's some caveats here. You can't trash the thing while installing. You have to do the trashing too. But in short, this gives you ability to make a toolbox list. You can run a lot of exciting one-ofs, a lot of interactions, and things come out at instant speed, and you're making a lot of fun choices. And I love this. And this deck hinged around a really ridiculous interaction that I've never seen happen before, and I wanted to test it out. And that starts here with Lethea NSA. A pretty underwhelming defensive upgrade, a Jinteki Sai clone that came out in the Ashes cycle. I've never seen this hit a table, but I wanted to play this because it's one of the few defensive upgrades in the format that trash themselves. So this card says when the runner gets through all the ice, you play a Sai game, 0, 1, or 2. And if you spend a different amount of credits, 66% of the time, it works all the time, the runner is forced outside the remote server and they have to come back through it once again. Now, at that point, Lethea has just trashed herself, and so it's a 1-coster. You can go get a 0-coster. So of course, it's the Métropole Grid, we're playing ganked. So the idea here is the runner has to run through that server twice and then still get ganked into one of the ice in the server. And we're playing some really mean ice that works really well with this kind of situation. Stavka can get an op ability if you trash something. Hopefully you are doing that. So this can be 7 strength at a minimum. And then they have to run through this 7 strength trash 2 program subroutines twice because it keeps its strength for the whole run. And then one more time get ganked into it, which can be absolutely disastrous. And that is the idea behind this list. We wanted to make this interaction happen. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do it that often. Now, unfortunately, in the upcoming gameplay, you're not going to see this exact deck list. If you do want to check that out, there should be a link somewhere up here that shows you we did play this live on stream. But what I found very quickly is that this deck was actually not very well tuned into the modern startup meta. Currently, as you might know, Endurance is kind of everywhere. This is one of the new cards in Midnight Sun, the very exciting icebreaker type console. It is an actual icebreaker. And this is kind of showing up everywhere. It's very strong. It's helping a lot for shapers to be aggressive. It allows them to deal with have a much better early to mid game, while some of their late game economy still is working really well. And on top of this, you're seeing this a fair bit in shaper, but you're also seeing this in Anarch. And this is a struggle. On top of that, the twinning, another very powerful Midnight Sun card, gives a lot of runners the ability to really hammer central servers. So even if you do have a really strong remote server, it's sometimes a struggle. And while op can do it a bit better than others, finding your agendas, getting them off the top of R&D through R&D lock and putting them into your kind of hellish remote server. And for these reasons, this deck really wasn't working very well. I have a below 50% win rate on this thing, and I feel like a lot of times, I think one of the bigger problems here is that we found ourselves playing a tier 2 deck into a very clear tier 1 deck that's super common right now in the startup format, and we have an awful matchup into it. It's kind of a shame because a deck like this that has like a pretty good ice suite, it has a good agenda suite, has a good enough economy, some nice tricks with their inherent op ability, and some defensive upgrades, mind you, not the best ones you can play in the format by a mile. But this used to be like a quintessential tier 2 Netrunner deck that you could have some pretty fun games casually in some JNet lobbies, but I'm finding myself getting blown out more often than not, where I feel like in the mid game, I realized this is over. And at that point, we're just getting hammered down by mostly those 2 cards that we showed. So we had to make some changes to this. And of course, some changes we made. We ended up here. This is a toolbox op, and it's basically a much more resilient version of this list that's trying to use the op ability to be able to pull the cards from our deck that help us in certain matchups. And there's some small changes here. While we haven't gone through every single card, we'll go over the really important ones. And this is Bast Chiriboga. This is a huge inclusion. This is a card that we can pull from our deck very easily. It's a 3-coster, and our deck runs a lot of 4-cost ice. We can trash those at instant speed with Svidagor Excavator, a very powerful op deck. And apologies, I say the name of this thing like 7 different times through the whole video. But if the runner does leave this up, which it generally should not do, you can go trash a 4-coster at instant speed, get that Bast Chiriboga installed at start of turn, and go ahead and score a 3-2 agenda out from hand. And this is such a big deal for this sort of list that can rush to 5 points and then struggle out there where the runner at that point has their endurance, has all their breakers, and they're breaking things for credits, if not for no money whatsoever. So Bass is super appreciating this list. Otherwise, we just kind of widen things and play a couple more tricks for different matchups that are pretty common in startup. We didn't mention this, but the original version also had 3 envelopment, and this is a reason I'm excited to play op in startup. Specifically, this has 4 end the run subroutines when it's rezzed, which is really good into endurance and botulus and boomerang, all very common cards you're seeing in the format. We have some 3-cost barriers. You do care about the different res costs of your ice, so you can pull them at different points in the game. But we also have a single wraparound. And I don't love this thing. 1 influence isn't a lot to ask, and the 2-cost ice slot within startup is like pretty sparse. The anti-AI kind of clause on this thing doesn't really matter so much, but at least this means it's going to be 2 counters from an endurance or a whole boomerang if someone wants to get through this without their fractor. On top of that, we have our good co-gates you expect. Afshar on 3, good for HQ. Hordem on 4, good after an envelopment. But finally, we have a magnet now, which is a really good way to deal with the botulus. And even on your own terms, you can get this installed and rezzed using op to maybe pull a botulus off at a time that it's being a problem for you. Otherwise, we're playing a few fewer sentries because, again, endurance is everywhere. A lot of the face checks aren't as bad as you want them to, and our upgrades got a bit wider as well. While we're now down to a single Athea because we are holding on to our roots, we're also now on a 0-cost on corporate troubleshooter. A card you don't see a lot, and admittedly too is not very good in the modern startup meta because a lot of people are not interacting with credits and icebreakers. They're getting through your stuff for free for boomerangs, botulus, and of course the boat. That being said, if you pull this out at instant speed, there can be some really, really massive face checks if this does line up. You can lock people out of the winning agenda in the remote server because this keeps strength for the whole run. So a very interesting card, but probably not the best time to play this right now. And then I think the last 2 cards worth noting is we have a single Chrysium grid so that we can do something or at least slow down deep dive decks. And in any list where you don't need this, you can go ahead and extract it for a 2-coster, which in your list are pretty good. And then we have a virus, which is again, very flexible. Against viruses, it's awesome, but on its own, you can use Op's ability here to go get a 2-coster from your list. I do think there's a chance, and while we haven't talked about the agenda suite, it's largely all the good 3/2s we can play and Hostile Takeover. We are also running 3 Oaktown renovations, just because we understand in this meta as a corporation, we have to go quickly. And this is one of the best pieces of ice you can jam behind 1 or 2 ice in the early game to make sure you're scoring, getting points on the table, while also getting economy at the same time. I do think you could consider Cyberdeck Sandbox in this slot, which I keep forgetting is not banned in the startup format. But unfortunately, I was running into a lot of the same issues with this list as the last. While we did have a bit more flexibility with this list to be able to address some of the matchups, we were still very easily getting locked off of R&D with things like the twinning, because in the mid to late game, our ice is broken for just credits. And if we can build a really scary remote server, we can lose on centrals. On top of that, in the early game, if the runner gets down on endurance, we're still struggling to score at some early agendas. At least the Bass gives us some legs here, but it wasn't doing much better than what we had before. You will see games from this, and some of them are very exciting, but same sort of issue. When we were playing against the best decks in the format, this wasn't doing it. So we ended up here. And this is where I get a bit pessimistic, because we are basically coming to the singularity point of startup, which one of the best corporations right now, and has been for the last couple of years, to deal with this best deck in the format right now, we'll show what that deck looks like as well, is Precision Design. This list, mind you, I don't think it has even changed since Midnight Sun has come out, but this is the sort of thing that's really good right now into the modern endurance meta. We're running a lot of the best upgrades in the whole format, Anoetic Void and Managarm Skunkworks. These both show up in our op list. But on top of that, I think there's a lot of good reasons why you want to play HB right now. You have a lot of ice that has more than 2 subroutines, which is exactly taxing enough for both the fixed strength breakers. These have massive strength, but also for things like endurance or boomerang, you've got a good agenda suite. We're trying to mimic this, which is a bit painful because obviously we're not doing it as good as just playing PD. But in short, what we've changed, not too much. We're playing an Anoetic Void as a 0-coster. Again, we can pull this at instant speed. This is the big reason why we're playing so many 1-costers. Things like Tithe and Ice Wall made it back into the list, because ideally, mid-run, we can Stavka away a rezzed 1-coster to get the Anoetic from our deck. And that's potentially mean and surprising, and that's one of the best things our list can do. On top of that, we're on 1 copy of Managarm Skunkworks. It's very easy for our deck to tutor 2-costers, so hopefully we get this in the remote server on top of the Anoetic and have something there. Again, it's still really hard to do all this, to still be fast, to still keep the agendas, while not getting absolutely hammered off the top of R&D with things like the twinning, which are oh so common. And this is where we ended up, and it's still kind of painful because I still think against the best runner decks in the startup format, this does not have a very strong win rate at all. Specifically, if that runner deck, we'll talk about that lat deck in just a moment, if it's playing things like pinhole threading, which I think they should be, just so you have ways to address these slightly unfair upgrades, I feel like this deck is just hoping that the draw is good and hoping they can rush them out, and that's kind of painful right now. I think the big deck I'm talking about, this is kind of the elephant in the room of startup, is this control lat deck. And this is not a startup list, this is a standard list. And this is the standard list that Sokka played at the APAC Continentals just about a month ago and has largely swept through almost all the Continentals and a lot of the major tournaments to date. And this standard deck, again, relies on that new card, the Endurance, but it has so much of this like really good late game, mid game, all this sort of dripless economy, the clickless, excuse me, economy that is dripping through the deck. So in standard, we had cards like Patap. Of course, we have cards like Rizeki, which you're pretty familiar with. But luckily enough, this deck was just recently addressed because this is one of the most powerful decks in the standard format. Just about 4 days ago on Friday, the standard ban list updated for Worlds 2022. That's happening in a couple weeks. And a lot of the cards that fueled the economy of this deck have been banned out. Rizeki and Patap, you mostly know Rizeki if you're playing startup. This is now banned from standard. So you're not seeing Rizeki anymore. And that's the big difference between this deck and startup. In startup, you can largely play this deck, and a lot of people have been. This deck is, I think, only about 9 cards off from being a totally startup legal deck. A lot of these cards are, again, Nisei cards. And a lot of people are playing this. And unfortunately, from my experience, I was running into this sort of deck more often than not trying to get footage in startup. And I think some of that's maybe just some bad luck for my sense. I don't know if that's as consistent for your experience as has been for mine. I know I was playing it right after Continentals where people were trying their new decks. They're preparing for the Startup World Championship. I also know people were testing for the green level clearance, like a synchronous tournament. But I was seeing a lot of this and I don't blame them. It's a very powerful deck, but I don't think that this is the corp you want to bring to the meta to address it. And that's a bit rough for me who's trying to make interesting content and try some fun interactions. So that is what it is. I know a lot of people were hoping that there would be some balance changes going into startup, but Lost Geek did just post this today, and they were saying basically there are going to be no changes to the balance of startup going into Worlds. They might address that soon enough, but unfortunately it's pretty difficult. They did just recently announce the changes to standard, and I know those were kind of last minute going to Worlds, and I'm pretty sure they just do not have time currently. Nisei, who've only recently agreed to start addressing some of the balance issues in startup, and that's obviously a huge undertaking, specifically with such a small card pool. That's something you're going to see more going forward, but right now that's not exactly the case. And I'm saying this not so much to be like negative about startup, because I think startup is still fantastic. The runner side, I think, is pretty wide open. On the corp side, you have to be a bit more targeted if you're playing competitively. But more so, this is the big difference between playing in standard as corp versus playing startup as corp. I think is one of the identities that like very obviously has the biggest power level difference between startup and standard. And that's largely because they just have access to more cards, not more powerful cards all the time, but just more cards. And obviously there are some outliers here. Border control is just absolutely stunning in op, a trash ability that you love to put in your deck regardless. But I think one of the biggest issues here, the biggest differences here is that corporations in startup don't often have a way to fight back. A lot of times, a lot of the corp decks in startup, all they have access to is ice, economy, defensive upgrades, and then there's 1 or 2 like disparate win conditions, personal evolution, maybe punitive counterstrike, but that's totally different. Where in standard, there are so many ways that you can fight back for a runner. So things like Wake Up Call are seeing a fair bit of play modernly. The idea is that sure, the runner can put down their endurance. Yeah, they can get through all of your stuff really cheaply, but you can hit them back. You can take a big baseball bat and sink that ship. And you're seeing that happen on top tables. And it's so refreshing that to play a corporation in standard and have an ability to say, hey, yeah, sure, you can make it in, but there's repercussions to your actions. On top of that, of course, not a lot of people love casually hard-hitting news, but this shows you why this is such an important card in competitive Netrunner play. Sure, of course, the runner can always put their endurance. They can get through your ice for pennies and float with very little economy, but at the end of the day, there's going to be repercussions. And that's something I'm so missing playing Startup Corp right now, where a lot of times is if they can get through my ice, if they can pinhole threading my defensive upgrade, I'm just hoping R&D just holds together. And that's totally different to standard where you have more proactive plays. So I don't know. Check out standard if you want to. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And if you're feeling that squeeze on the corp size, I think standard might be what you could consider trying out. But that's this list. You're going to see the OMP Toolbox PD version and non-PD version. We got a couple games coming up. I don't think you see any lat ones because I'll be honest, they're all pretty hard blowouts. But this is the OP list and I think it's quite fun. Probably not a tier 1 deck. That might be obvious at this point, but you get a lot of interesting plays. Enjoy the videos. All right, welcome back to Métropole Grid. We're playing an OB deck today. This is a bit of a toolbox op in startup. So we have access to like a bunch of different things. Hopefully some cards that are good for just about every matchup. We're playing against Reina, so I think one of the big cards in our deck is just having money, but also we have a magnet, which is nice. Opening hand, we have economy. We actually have a lot of economy in this hand. I'm going to keep it. I'm not sure Reina can do a lot turn 1 if we just don't ice anything up. The worst is maybe like an imp. There's nothing like Lamprey in the startup format. Best of luck. Have fun. So I think we're just going to go with the hostile takeover against Reina. You know, she is an economic denial corp. Also, you want to res your ice, so you're not worried about tread lightly. You're not worried about en passant. So we're just going to go up and start with as much money as we can. And we have a nice play next turn to jam out the Oaktown renovation. Yeah, this is an op deck. I haven't felt great about this. I used to play a Lethea ganked deck, and it was just a bit too much. I wonder if they can play another link card. This is obviously a very, very good card. Draws at a premium in startup. But this also means they're going to be a bit more aggressive. If they get a link, they get a credit off this too, because Reina does start with 1 link already. I think there's a couple link cards in the format. Extract, nice. Mostly, what is it, like the bird? It's a fermenter. We have a virus in the list that we actually can get good value from. And here we have a Métropole Data Fault. I think with only 1 credit, they're going to have more credits next turn. They can't really botchless or boomerang through this. So I think we can just start rushing out. And again, that's largely what we want to do in this matchup, is just rush as much as we can. This could potentially be like a 6 credit res for Reina, but also a 9 credit res if they hit us with a, what's it called? Tread lightly, which is something we have to watch out for. So see, there's the botchless. That's totally fine. That's a big reason why we have envelopment. And once it's done its duty, we just extract it. So res envelopment for 6. It ends the run. It has 4 end the run subroutines. This card is so good in the modern format, in standard or in startup as well, just because there's a lot of endurance, a lot of botulus, a lot of boomerang. So this has enough end the run subroutines to make a runner actually have to produce breakers. Ice is up the top. We're going to have to ice up R&D eventually, just because that's where we're planning to win the game from. And here we consider, oh, they didn't trash a corporate troubleshooter. Oh, nice. Not that it does anything against botulus, but it's another one of our 0 costers that we can pull in the right situation. But here we probably just want to score out. We could consider leaving it on the table, but I think our money's so good we don't need to take the risk, because we have an extract in our hand, which is a 6 credit card. We can trash the envelopment to get a 4 coster, and then we can jam in probably like a Malapert Maryland. Oh, nice. We're going to see a couple cards here. They might steal an agenda here. And then we're not going to draw into agenda for a couple turns, but that's a big thing also about extract, is it shuffles the deck. So we're going to draw into an unknown card. All right, it's a Chrism. That's good. That can stop Stargates. Here, is there any way that we could purge? Not exactly. Let's just get a lot of money. We'll extract this. This shuffles the deck. So install a 4 coster. In terms of end the run stuff, we have a Whoredom. We can put that in the remote server. That's pretty good. Everything else is mostly sentries, which is pretty ugly because you don't want to show those when you res. It's kind of the problem with op and startup. Power level is so much lower than in standard, where you have things like border control and a lot more just tools to play with. So here, again, we would want to draw here once for R&D. We want to get an ice. Okay, at least we have that. And here we can either jam this in the remote server, not something I'm excited to do, or just get more money. We have enough money, so we're just hoping R&D that holds out. If we put the Chrism grid on R&D, they're not going to get their successful run from DreamNet. I think that might be actually more important than getting the Maryland on the table, or getting the Malapert. Malapert gets us a virus, which is kind of good. Let's just do the virus. Let's see if they botchless this, which we'd be happy about. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So this draws out the run. So they're going to run through this again. They use a simul chip. They did that on our turn because the botulus was trashed. So now they can come back in. So we baited out there. And now if we score, it's going to be a bit tricky. We'll need another piece of ice for sure. But they're using actually both subroutines. I don't know if you need to do that when we're on 14 credits. You can give us the 1 credit. This is unfortunately a Malapert Data Vault. So we're just baiting out the run. So next turn we want to top deck an ice. And I think we have like 16 in the list. So we're pretty likely to get one. It's also an unknown card. Nothing. That actually could get us trade this into a magnet, which would be kind of powerful. So I do think that's actually the right play, is that I think we want to just install, we can draw once for a better piece of ice. Okay, so we just get these on the server. I think at this point we have enough money. Like, we're not even playing our hedge fund because we don't need it. But we want to use the Sviator to make the Whoredom into a magnet, which is something that they can't botchless through. We could have actually considered purging there, but their money's not too bad. And here we could put a Maryland on the table, which is just a really good card. I don't want to put in the remote server because we want to jam an agenda next turn, but we definitely are not drawing ice. And that's exactly why we're scared of centrals. This is where we really need to get, all right, they're imping the Maryland maybe. If they're imping that, we might keep the Sviator, which is actually a better card. Sviator. They can trash it with bad publicity. Let's see if they do. I don't know if runners value this card enough. This is incredibly powerful. We can also use this to fast advance if we need to. Yeah, they're not trashing it. I think that's a mistake. Top of the deck, they can't imp, but still, fair few agendas in there. Okay, they got the Atlas. So we're going to res this, start a turn. Then we'll start our turn. We'll trash this to trash the botulus. We can get a 3 coster here. So we could actually just go get them a virus. But I think the magnet in server 3 is maybe a bit better. They haven't drawn a lot, so the breakers, they might not have it. They also saw the top of the deck, so the shuffle's not too big of a deal. Oh, we should have... No, we're fine. There you go. That's what we want. Unfortunately, it's 2 code gates, which is a bit ugly. But we're going to get imped once. At least we can pop them a virus here, so we can pull them a virus. We can actually go... I don't know. If we res the Whoredom too, we can go ahead and trash the Whoredom. Oh, shit. That's nice. Economic denial. We'll res it. We definitely want to res anyways, but it looks like they're going to take their Oak down off of us. They're playing Cast Cradle. That's nice. That's a bit of econ denial. We have to res this for 6, which is a fair bit. But again, our money's been relatively good anyways. They're not running it. Wow. They use the imp. We're okay. All right, they imped that. Okay, so we don't have to pull them a virus anymore. So do we want to use the Svigator? We could trash the Magnet to get a 2-coster on R&D. The Magnet on its own is like not amazing when they have Cat's Cradle and bad publicity. I think that actually might be right. I just don't know. 2-costers in this deck is actually a really ugly slot. So I think it might be better to get an Cat on R&D. So we're going to go ahead and do that at the cost of our remote server. So we'll get a barrier on R&D. We want to get the Cat. Yeah. All right. And we're technically on game point. Now, if we have a 4-coster, which I think we're just going to get a 4-coster in our hand, because if we res the 4-coster and they don't trash it, we can go ahead and pop it with Svigator to go get the, what's it called? We have to get a non-agenda card. Yeah, if we get a 4-coster res and they don't trash the Svigator, which again, such a powerful card, we can go get our Bast Chiriboga by trashing a 4-coster. So we want to get a 4-coster here. I think we're pretty okay with Stavka. And here we have too many cards in our hand. Again, I don't know if we need the Corporate Troubleshooter. It can be cute. It actually could cause us to win because it boosts the strength for the entire turn. So we could technically boost a Magnet out of the range of the Cat's Cradle. It's going to be difficult. I think that's probably the least consistent line in our hand. I don't know if the Crisium is very good. I'm worried for Crisium mostly for like Stargate. But yeah, we're technically on game point. We have 1 fast advance trick. And again, we can pull it. Oh, cool. That's fine. So they play down Augustino, which is a bit slow. So here, this could be it. I don't actually think we have to trash anything. We don't have any 4-costers. So I don't think we're going to use Svigator. So what we're going to do is we're just going to install Stavka into the Oaktown, and we can make this a 7-strength Stavka, which can trash their Cat's Cradle. So they have a hard remote server to deal with. I think Botchless would be the good thing here. But let's go out and try and do a triple Oaktown. And if they steal this, that means our Stavka will probably be rezzed. So we can go get the Bast Chiriboga. Admittedly, we don't have a 3-2 agenda in our hand. We have a lot in the deck. So the chance of top decking is pretty high. We'll res the Stavka. We have the money again. Will we make a 5-strength? That's for this run. So no, that's not going to do anything. But that is the Forge activation orders for 2 influence. We have to play around emergency shutdown too, but our economy is good. Ooh, nice. Revolver. They have it. They're coming in through remote server. Let's see. Also, they imp the Maliper. They produce a lot of breakers by not drawing a lot. I think they did really well on that. Do they have the money? This is where like having a Corporate Troubleshooter could potentially matter. But this is the issue is like if we don't get our Lethea Nisei, which I think is actually worth getting soon enough, we can trash a 2-coster to get it. Our remote server is not too sturdy. This costs luckily 2 credits and 2 bullets, which is pretty good tax for a 4-cost ice. And the Magnet is what? 3 more credits? So we have an option here. We can either trash the Stavka to get a 3-cost barrier, or we can trash this to get a Bast Chiriboga. And I kind of like the Chiriboga. Let's see if they imp the Maliper. They can always run HQ and imp something too. Yeah, they're going to imp it. It doesn't really matter when we're on game point. It does play around the last hostile, so I don't think it's necessary. But it's, yeah, if you think you're gonna get purged, you could get some value from that. It also does actually deny us. It's actually worth it because it denies us a speed core, which could get us a Spin Doctor. So no, I think that is worth doing. Let's just hope that we top deck a 3-2 agenda. So we'll trash this, game 3. Again, this card's so good. Bast Chiriboga in server 3. So we top deck a 3-2, we win. Nice. Oh, we have to hit this. And let's do some meat damage. Nice. A bit of economic denial. Good game. Thanks for the game. We had that toolbox again, being able to like be very like fluid with the ice on your table is kind of the idea. You didn't see too many of the hard tech cards. Hey, catch you around. We do have access to things like Mavirus, Wraparound, which I don't think is actually very relevant in the modern meta. It's just nice to have a 2-cost barrier. We have Magnet, which is good. We have Whoredom, which is an anti-AI card too. So you have a lot of options. The problem is, like, I was trying to get defensive upgrades into this deck. I think having like a mana garm is nice as a 2-coster you can pull, especially even during run. But right now we're doing 2 costs with Regolith and Marilyn into 1 cost, which is Lethea, and then 1 cost into a 0 cost, like a corporate troubleshooter. So unfortunately we're playing with Lethea and Nase, but otherwise, yeah, maybe it'll work. Let's try another one. All right, Toolbox op and startup. We have a nice enough hand. We have some good ice. We have that Sphere Tagore, which is fantastic. And we have a hostile takeover, which I think is just about good enough. It's unfortunate giving bad publicity on turn 1. This turns on our archers, and, you know, Hoshiko wants to run. So giving that out early is not the greatest. But hey, we have a really good remote server here with Magnet for the Anarchs, Botulus, Envelopment for everybody, and then even a Stavka if we need it. So I'm feeling good about this. Let's keep it. We have to go fast. We have to be pretty rushy. Best of luck. Have fun. We have to be quick. Because we don't scale into the late game particularly well, and we're also really good at trashing our own R&D. So let's see if we can rush it out and get enough tech cards to really help with the matchup. That in the hand is actually pretty good. They might run HQ here, but at least it means next turn we could do install advance, or double install ice, install agenda. You generally want to get a token on this if you can. It opens up so many options to get your one of tech cards that like op can really pack into the deck to get with the op ability. We'll see. Hoshiko usually wants to run on turn 1, and this is not standard format, so there's nothing you have to really be scared about for running. And when I say that, I don't know if it makes standard sound scary. I actually appreciate that part of standard heavily, where corporations have more teeth and a bit more access to win conditions, because basically outside of punitive Counter-Strike, runners can just run all over you. Ah, beans, it's a virus, so we're not going to purge. Well, we could. It doesn't do anything. But unfortunately, that being trashed is a bit obnoxious because it actually is a meaningful card in the matchup. When you can also not only res this to make it a 2-coster at instant speed, which is really good, but I'm pretty likely they're on Botulus and maybe in Fermenter. Let's see if they go HQ here. They could go R&D to C2. I think a lot of times players favor running R&D. It's more exciting, but kind of sweeping HQ, like you don't maybe expect us to have 2 agendas in the opening hand, but I think this is right. It gives us a read on what we have. So envelopment, no surprise. Shit, and they got the Atlas, though. There, it paid out heavily. So now we know the top of the deck. Actually, they don't know it. They did trash them a virus, and maybe it's actually, I don't know. If they trash them, means they probably have viruses, but if we draw this early, I don't know how bad it is. All right, let's get another agenda. We have a Spicator. Okay, so let's draw once for some options. Okay, Bass is our fast advance, but already our start has kind of fallen apart because now we have to guard R&D because that's where all the agendas are. The question is, what do we guard R&D with? I want the envelopment for remote server. I want the magnet for the remote server, but unfortunately, we're going to have to put a magnet down here in R&D. Maybe it can be res at a nice time. And the Sphere Core doesn't do anything unless they res stuff. I think we can put one on the table just to draw attention so they have to deal with this. Not that we're going to actually crack it, because it doesn't do much besides gain 3 credits. Because for op to trigger, the card needs to be resed. So already, like, that's the volatility of how fast I think you have to go and start it as a corp. Currently, with the things like Endurance or Zeki, all the drip cards and Anarch, is that like losing that agenda at HQ is going to be absolutely so massively detrimental that if they can just lock R&D now, we can't win the game. So if they can get down like twinning and a companion. We do have some ways to get around it because we can shuffle the deck with op, but like that could be as like the worst opening we have. They're cracking the Gachapon. We see some interesting things like Retrieval Run. They have down their Keiko they installed for 2, but yeah, they're just getting a Rizeki. So this is the sort of card that puts a real timer on the game because we cannot race these credit per card per turn cards. And we have to remember they have Boomerang, which we're feeling okay about that with Envelopment. But we have to really get lucky on the draw. I do think more and more startup decks, I need to play on the corp side Sprint. I need to play Digital Rights Management because if you can't draw your agendas early, I think you're in a world of hurt. All right, they removed the... Oh, they shuffled the Boomerang. Retrieval Run, they shuffled back in. Sure Gamble. And remove the Jailbreak and Keiko. Keiko obviously makes sense. I think Jailbreak is such a good card just because it also replaces itself. And you want to run every turn, largely with Hoshiko, if you want to keep digital. Especially if they get a Dream Net down. We'll see if that Retrieval Run is more impactful again. They might not draw it. That's kind of the issue with shuffling cards back. And a Leech means, again, they want to run Centrals a lot. Let's see if they poke HQ here. I think it'd be pretty good. Some players like flipping back and over with Hoshiko, so you're not losing a lot of credits. But I think spending a credit for a card draw, like especially when you have these sort of like economy over time cards, is good enough. So there you go. Just going to say digital. Acts as a Stavka. So that's another card known, and we're not going to res the Sviatogor. Okay, a cat is good enough for Centrals. Again, we need to draw into something. This is not anything. Now, if we do end up resing or icing up a central server, I think we need to just build for a remote server. Like we could have cat HQ. It's probably okay. It means that if they want to get value, they have to run archives, which like isn't the best. It does still get a leech counter, but I want to get some of these res so that we can do something more aggressive. Like I'll Sviatogor the HQ card if it's res, to go get a regolith, make the regolith into a Lethea, and then start doing something. But we need to get our ice resed. There used to be a lot of cards in the standard format in FFG world that allowed you to res your own ice out of turn. And that's something I think Op would incredibly appreciate, to be able to just res stuff without relying on the runner to interact. They drew up 3 here. I don't know if they're going to run Archives for a leech counter and to keep Hoshiko. I think if you're clicking for a credit or if you're drawing a card, it's actually very comparable. But DreamNet makes that better, so they're going to flip. So actually just icing Archives is probably worth it to some extent. Of course, our Svea Tagore is kind of open for business too. They've shown no breakers so far, and I think we can now do a 2-card jam. The issue with the stop guys, it doesn't deal with Boomerang really well. I don't know if we have enough money for this, but they don't know that. We have 10 credits. This costs 10 credits. It costs 9, but we'll be okay. So hopefully we can get this one through. Because we cannot wait for the game to go longer with cards like Rozeki and now DreamNet every turn as well. We can't res on Centrals. That's one of the downsides here. We just can't afford to res them. Again, R&D is the only one we really care about because we need just about all our money for this. And if we res a Stavka into trash a Rozeki, I think we'll be okay with it. We're not too excited to trash a Leech. Leech, and no surprise, means they're probably on Cleaver. They're probably on Buzzsaw. And we did see the Retrieval run, which makes me consider if they're playing something bigger and more unwieldy like a Femme Fatale, that they don't want to actually pay the install costs. That's how Retrieval run classically saw it play back when it came out. But sometimes people just play it because it's good enough recursion. It's not bad. There's program destruction in startup for sure. We're looking at the stop there. This is a Boomerang. All right, Boomerang HQ. I don't care about this. Now they have 1 click left here. So we actually could res the Alket to eat the Boomerang. They're going to get through. They're going to have enough money to trash one of these. The Bass is the one we want the most. I think we're going to res the Alket mostly because then we have a res Alket, which means we can start doing things with Svea Couture. But we're not going to advance this unless we wall-to-wall advance it. So, all right, they're through. They hit the extract. They hit Bass. Feels bad. They probably trashed that. Funny enough, Bass in hand is actually in this deck a lot of times worse than Bass from R&D, because clicklessly with Svea Tagore, we can install it at the start of our turn if we trash a 4-coster, which means that we can install an agenda and just score it out in the same turn. So sometimes actually them trashing the Svea Tagore so we get into Archives, so we spin Doctor it back in, is actually okay for us. I would like to have it though, I think, because we don't have a spin Doctor yet. They left it. Cool. So Boomerang's back in. We only have 7 credits. It's enough to res the Envelopment, and it's a second Rozeki. This is exactly what I mean. Like, you can't... If the runner's getting 2 credits a turn, that's kind of a bit. Do we want to trash the Alket? Not this turn. I think next turn we'd consider it, just because we can put a Regolith in here. And I'm just going to score out, because I don't think our scoring windows... We have a clear scoring window here. Of course, it's on the table, and we have 3 clicks, but it's just a matter of time before they get breakers down. And they've drawn a fair bit. They've gone through about half their deck. And we didn't see any breakers, if I'm not mistaken, off of the Gachapon. Checking Servitude to Svea Tagore. They're getting the DreamNet draw off of this. I think actually this is a card that low-key you need to trash, especially with bad publicity. It's only 3 to trash, right? But this card is busted good. Like, if they don't deal with this, yeah, there you go. A lot of people don't deal with that. You need to trash the Svea Tagore. It's so much of the power in op. Is now we can trash the Alket to get a 2-coster like a Regolith at start of turn. We're already up 3 credits. We res the Regolith for free. Then we're grinding the Regolith. It's not that the money is that impactful. We can also use that to get a wraparound for server 3, which is another thing that taxes out Boomerangs or Botuluses, or once they have a Cleaver, it's obviously a credit, which is not great. And then again, now they're making 4 credits of value every turn with Rozeki, Keiko, and Paladin Puemo. So we're just on the clock. And we're not playing defensive upgrades, so we just kind of have to rush. Oh, the 22. Now we're like centrals are messed up. Now we have to ice R&D. This is 30 issues where playing Corp and starter can be very difficult if you're not going very fast and forcing the issue constantly in a remote server, because it doesn't take long for them to set up being able to see 2 to 3 cards off the top of R&D every other turn. And you can't win against that. Okay, so the question is, might as well res this, I guess. Well, not always, because there's wall-to-walls in their deck. What do we go get? Because if we look onto R&D, we have a Boomerang that's probably not good enough. They don't have an answer yet, but they have to get Buzzsaw or Boomerang because they can't Botulus this. We haven't seen Botuluses yet. We can also crack this to go get a 2-coster, which in our deck is either Wraparound, which is not amazing. We can get any of our Marylands or Regoliths, if I'm not mistaken. The Regolith is more money, and the Regolith, the 2-costers become the Lethea Nase, which is actually pretty good. I think we're going to do that too. It also just takes a card of the deck. The problem is if we're worried about HQ pressure, and as soon as we draw an agenda, we're going to jam it in. The issue is though, we're giving leech counters away for free. Maybe that's not worth it. I'm not sure if it's worth it. I don't think so. Probably is. Probably is. But just getting Regolith, is that good enough? We can extract the Regolith for the Lethea. Yeah, okay, let's just go. Let's just use our ability. So Regolith. Are we going to click Regolith, or should we just do Maryland? Maryland won't give you the 2 credits, mind you, because the campaign wasn't res during our start of turn trigger. It's res in the middle of it. It doesn't start a turn then. So we're going to put this in server 3, and then we can extract for Lethea. The problem is, again, we need an agenda. I'll just do the Maryland. Okay, we have a Malapur. After on HQ is pretty good. We can draw once for an agenda. Prism on R&D doesn't really do anything against the twinning. It stops the leech, though. It stops the dream net. So I think we're just going to, like, batten down the hatches here. So we'll put this on HQ, and we'll put the Crisium on R&D. And Crisium is also a cute card, because even in the matchup, if it's not necessary, you can res this for 3. Not Manigum or Mining License. I think Mining License was considerable, but we had stuff to do this turn. I might as well get the clickless economy here. But Crisium is nice, because you can just res it to extract it or Sphere to gore it, and you basically credit neutral, at least on the Sphere Couture, to get a 2-coster. And I like that. Let alone it's a very powerful card. There's a lot of deep dive in the format. So here they definitely want to install a thing a turn because of the twinning Poemo. There you go. So now they can run R&D C2 cards. And if they keep doing that and we can't keep shuffling with Ob, another real reason why Sphere to gore is so powerful, we'll never see an agenda. And they're not running. Okay. They're setting up to run, that's for sure. So here we can actually trigger our order, or order our triggers. So we can get Maryland campaign to trigger first, and then we can go use the Sphere to gore to use the Maryland to trash it to go get a 1-coster, which I think we will do. The problem is if they play a pinhole threading, yeah, that's kind of it. So we'll do op. 1-coster. We'll get a Lethea and a Say. Put that in server 3. 1-cost defensive upgrade. That's a good enough thing to have. Still no agenda. Still no agenda. And no ice to rearm R&D. So we pulled this obviously a bit preemptively, but we didn't know what's going to be there. Let's just make it a bit scarier. This actually might bait a run, which I think could be ugly for us. We'll just put new things into new remote servers so that we can continue to get more triggers off of the Sphere to gore. It's just money. It thins our deck too, for better for worse. But again, they haven't shown a breaker yet, and they probably have one if they're putting down Trickster Taka. And just look at the amount of economy and value they're getting clicklessly, while for us, if they trash the Sphere to gore, we got nothing. So again, you have to kind of really go fast, because it's really hard in startup for corporations to like force the issue in any meaningful way. We could res this to get this shuffled back into our deck. I don't think we need to. I really don't know if we need to. We already have one. We're going to be pulling it from our deck anyways. They trashed it. That's fair. We could consider resing it. It just gets one more card in R&D, but more now. Obviously for them as well, we want to find agendas more than we want to draw a Maryland off the top. If we really want to get a Maryland back, we can go ahead and get a Maryland back using any of our op abilities. Here's a breaker. It's an Adori. Breaks sentries. They have all the virtuals, so Stavka is 9 credits. Actually, it's a bit cheaper. It's 6 credits with Leech. Still, they don't exactly have that money, and they think this is an agenda. It looks like we're keeping them out of essentials. Once our ice is res 2, we got way more options with Sphere to gore, which is good. Self-modifying code, again, now they have options. It's just credits are the limiting issue here, but they're going to lock the top of R&D really hard. We could res the Malapur and then Sphere to gore the Malapur to get a Spin Doctor to draw 2. Shit, I think that's right. Based on how fast I think we have to go in this, I think we have to trash this just to get a Spin Doctor. We'll put in a new server. So that draws 2. There we have an above the law. Whoa, if we land an above the law, are we happy? Server 3. I don't think Lethea is going to stay. Double envelopment on their remote server is a bit ugly because if they trash one, the second one doesn't get our ob fire. Oh, excuse me. It's all the self-modifying code. So I think we can put that out on server 3. Issue now is R&D by a mile. In terms of this, we need 14 credits. So I am going to hedge fund here. We could always just extract the Sphere to gore, but it's doing enough for us. So we'll just hedge fund here. So we have 22 credits. But if the above the law fire connects and we trash the twinning, like we're suddenly back in it. It was a 1 in what, 33 or whatever it was to draw that one good agenda. But this trash is a resource when it's scored. And with 10 credits, I don't know if they can charge a remote server. They also have to respect Archer to some extent. And this is really good against Archer. It breaks Archer for 6 credits. So you generally don't res Archers unless it connects. We also have access to Corporate Troubleshooter though. So sometimes the Stavkas can be really mean. And there's an Ice Carver though. That helps. But we're not jamming into remote servers. They just set up with all this like late game nonsense. So we really need to get this scored. And then from there, we protect the Bass and hopefully draw an agenda. And luckily we have so many shuffle effects with Sphere Couture that actually a lot of times is right to even Sphere Couture away the Lethea. And again, the Sphere to gore, they need to trash this to make the Lethea into a Spin Doctor to break R&D lock because you get a shuffle and then draw 3 at top of turn. I hope it's obvious how powerful this card is and needs to be respected. because this is giving us all our outs. It gives us so much acceleration and gives us that toolbox ability. You need to protect this, and they need to trash this. They have 2 clicks left, 13 credits. They think this is probably an agenda in their mode server. If they're on Cleaver, they can break 1 envelopment for 2 credits. They actually might be able to run this remote server. It comes down to Lethea. Cool thing with Lethea is she works really well with Op, because if this does trash itself when we get a 4 cost and put it on the outside, you have to go back into it. But this actually probably comes down to the side game off Lethea. And then Lethea can become a 0 coster, which can become a corporate troubleshooter. I think we had ganked in the list before, and that corporate troubleshooter can send them back out again. Or keep them out for the turn, as long as credit's willing. There's a Cleaver coming out with the self-modifying code. They still have a lot of money. So let's see if they break all of it. It's only 4 strength. Now it's 3 strength. They break most ice for pennies, right? So we really need Lethea. If Lethea fails, I think we're out of a game here. Cleaver, end the run, end the run. There's 3 more subroutines. Let's see if they break all of them. I think with Lethea, you might want to consider breaking all of them. Fire all, okay. So install 4 costs from our deck. So Archer, Hordem, Stavka, or Winchester. Hordem's the most taxing. By most taxing, I mean they can't deal with it. This might be close, because we can make this 7 strength. It'll be 6/5 strength. So they break it for 6. Here we can trash the Spin Doctor. Having the shuffle on command is nice, but it looks like they're not trashing this via Tagore. We'll res the Stavka. We'll make it big strength, because the difference is actually meaningful. It's 3 credits. So bye. Could have also trashed HQ, but again, I want to tax the leech counter. So it's now 6 strength because of the Ice Carver. Ice Carver, mind you, reduces the strength of all ice by 1 when they're encountering it. Yeah, when you're encountering it. So it's 6 credits. Continue here. Another Stavka could be ruinous. It wouldn't end the run though. But we just want them to spend credits, because if they spend credits on this, they can't play the Lethea game. And this is going to be at least 2 credits. So we have a guaranteed Lethea. So actually, okay. This is not bad. And we have a Magnet on HQ, which is the one target we're worried if they could dump a twinning this turn. This is actually pretty nice, because the above the law is perfect. An Archer here would also be like, I think ruinous for them. 2-rated double Stavka. Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, Archer would be a problem. We haven't seen a second twinning, have we? No. They probably have 2 in their list. I'd be surprised if they're only on 1. They also have an access to card. Oh no, they did. They trashed the Maryland, didn't they? Was that this turn? It's been a long turn. Ooh, drew a card. No access. So we're going to go ahead. It's actually worth trashing the Stavka into a 3-cost code gate like an Afshar in their mode server. I think that's worth doing. Whether it's worth doing now is a different question. I think it might be worth doing now. Oh, they already can't deal with the code gates. No, this is fine. Nice. Let's go. Twinning down. And we are technically have the win in hand. Not in hand exactly, but we have the Bast Chiriboga. And we can always use Sphia Takor to trash the Lethea Nase, to get a Spin Doctor, to draw and shuffle. So if they lock R&D, we'll see 3 cards. So we can get it. Of course, we need this in the remote server. And again, a lot of times if this is in the deck, it's so much better for us, because we could just Sphia Takor for the Hordem, and that'd be good. Another reason why I think Sprint in this list is actually pretty hot, because you want to get certain assets and upgrades back into the deck itself. But now they've lost all the multi-access. They still have all the value here, and now they're finally trashing this via Takor, I think. Unless they're just doing this for DreamNet. Wait, I know Bass's hand. They're respecting it. You still need to trash this, I think. Oh, they're not running it. I think you still need to trash this. This gives us so much flexibility. I think there's no way that you don't trash this here. Until you shuffle it. It's still a good card. They're right, though. They're playing around the Bass very smart, because, again, we could just Sphia Takor, hoard them into a Bass, and then fast advance. But they need to get the Bass in the remote server. They can do, it's 1 code gate, 1 sentry, 1 barrier, which is nice. I think they can probably deal with this. I think with this turn, we get the Bass in there. Maybe we work on the Regolith. We'd want to trash the Regolith to make it into a wall-to-wall for additional draw. I think that's the next thing we want to do. Because right now it's just singles off the top of R&D until they get another twinning down. So we have a bit of a breathing room. Oh man, Sprint Bass into the deck is like almost always the play, which is wild. But I'll put in the remote server and then we'll Spin Doctor it back. I think we also could have considered, we have to remember we have a Crisium here. It actually might be right to use the Crisium to get a 2-coster from our deck. Oh, shit. All right, I think we still crack the Crisium here. Oh, they're not installing it. It's also, they still have 3 virtuals. They have 4 virtuals. In fact, I think every resource besides Liberated was a virtual. There you go. Okay, they have 6 cards in hand. And they probably have a decoder by now. So the question is, do we use Sphia Takor to trash the Crisium to install a 2-coster from the deck? I think we would consider doing it. And will we put the cat on server 3? It doesn't actually do anything. It looks like it does something, which is nice. But I am gonna res this just to get the click list, the click compression. Oh, Maryland's actually fine too. Wraparound doesn't really do much. It's a barrier for 1. But Regolith is like, okay, we don't want to put in the remote server. So it's Regolith or Maryland. I think I'm better with Maryland because we have an extract. It's technically better. It's not going to get the credits off of it, of course. Oh, I could have done it at that window. That actually would have been better. Oops, I did it preemptively. It's fine. So we can't actually get the Maryland trigger. I goofed this. Yeah, I didn't start a turn. I was worried that start a turn, but no, you start turn, then you do the triggers, then mandatory draw, of course. Okay, a cat on R&D isn't amazing here. We need to get Bass in their remote server, but we want to plan the rest of our turn. We draw 1. Again, HQ pressure. We can deal with the essentials. I do think we want another ice on R&D just so that it can target a Boomerang or Bontulus. But the win is an R&D. They probably have to deal with the Bass, and even if they deal with the Bass, we might have a scoring window on another turn. So I think we install Bass, we install a cat. What do we do for our next click? I think we might as well draw. We could also extract the Maryland for a 1-coster. The 1-coster would be a wall-to-wall. That can become a Sphetogorid into a 0-coster to get the Spin Doctor to get Mass Draw. That's also a line. Whoa, Ob is cool. Okay, so we either, trash the Maryland. We can extract the Maryland for mass money, shuffle it back in, get a 1-coster. It'd be a wall-to-wall. I don't know if we have any other good 1-costers. Our Malipur is trashed. Oh, we have a no, it's trashed. Our 1 Malipur is trashed. Our Lethea is out. We have no 1-cost dice. I think that's fine. Okay, 6 credit click, nice. Then we'll put this in remote server, and then we'll ice up R&D where the game is. Now, wall-to-wall is important. Not only can we draw with this first at the beginning of our turn, but then we can Sphetogorid it to get it to be a Spin Doctor, so we can draw 3 fresh cards off of R&D. After, well, I guess if they saw the top card because of whatever. The point is that we can make this a Spin Doctor at instant speed. And they do know that the Bass is likely to be in their remote server, and they only have a lot of credits. They'll have 3, 2 in Taka. There's the cleaver, right? Or the buzzsaw. Oh, it's just a Boomerang. Okay, they still can deal with the Hortum, so they've still installed a decoder. It looks like the Roseki's getting trashed for self-modifying code. This might be expensive. They still need 4 credits for this and 2 credits for the Lethea side game at a minimum. Let's see an overclock. I don't know, can they deal this? This feels like a bit too little money. And the cool thing too is once the wall becomes a Spin Doctor, we can put the Lethea back in and get that. There's the buzzsaw. This is 7 credits again. This only breaks for 1. Okay, wait, that helps. This is also now only 2. They should have enough money here. They break it for free, right? Ugly. Oh yeah, we probably should Sphetogorid that sooner than later. I didn't realize that interaction was that bad. Envelopment is at least 1 credit, lol. Envelopment probably wrecks me? No, not at all. Oh, actually, they have to boost once. So it's 2, 3 credits? No, it's 3 credits. They're short 1. Whoa, they're short 1. Oof. Right, because they have to boost for 2. So they could have here ran archives, which is actually worth more than clicking for a credit. Not that they knew this ice, but that's really close. Yeah, that's rough. So they can break the end of the run subroutines. They have a Boomerang on it. They Boomeranged it again if they don't make a successful run, and they still have to play Lethea. So that was good ice. Again, development's so good. So they increase the strength of Cleaver. Let's see if they break all the subroutines. It lets us use our op ability, and I don't think there's any 4-costers we're excited about. Like, I don't want to res an Archer because we have to forfeit the winning agenda. There's a chance you just let this end the run fire, right? And then you keep your Boomerang on here. It's a bit ugly. But the issue is if they go through this, not only do they not have enough money for the Lethea game, even if they win the Lethea game, they definitely can't trash Bass. They can't trash Bass. So they're 1 credit short. So I don't even think, like, depending on the money, like, we don't even have to pay for Lethea, right? Fire Unbroken, okay. So trashes, we get a 4-coster out of our deck. That's good. Again, we want the 4-costers out. This is going to be 3 strength, which means they actually have to boost with Adore. They do have a Link. So this is only not that much money to break, but actually I think that's the best ice we can install here. The question is, do we put on the remote server? I think we do put on the remote server just in case. Not the great place for that ice. And now we play Lethea. And we can pay any amount of money. Just let me read the text on Lethea, because they can't trash this. Okay, when the first time each turn the runner approaches the server, the real runner secretly spend 0, 1, or 2, classic side game. Reveal spend credits. If you and the runner spent a different number of credits, you may trash this upgrade. You may. So it's not even necessary. So if we spend 0 and they spend 0, I just want to spend 2, because if I spend 2, Lethea gets trashed, we get a 0-coster out of our deck, which is a Spin Doctor. That's kind of sick. And they can deal with the HQ F-Share. That's the only issue, is if we get the Spin Doctor here. Oh no, we've already used our op ability. We don't have to trash this though. They paid 2. Trash Lethea and Asay. I'm not going to. I'm going to let them trash it because putting them outside into the Winchester, they can jack out. Yeah, they can jack out. So I'm not going to trash Lethea. Oh, it did deny them a card draw, which is neat. If that says yep, GG. No, not at all. Oh, yeah. We could have put him back outside. They would have jacked out though, and we would have trashed Lethea. I'd rather them trash Lethea here. Just so that they have less credits. Because if they can jack out. If you're approaching an ice and it's not the first ice you've approached a run, you can still jack out. Nope. You're good. Kind of like ganked. Sometimes it's right to let the opponent trash the ganked because it costs them more damage and does more money. Weathering hurts ganked, it's too late. Yeah, ganked I actually had originally in the list because Lethea into ganked is like a really nice combination. But I don't have ganked. At this point though, we would have triggered this at the point they've already committed to access, so they can't not access. But yeah, it's just a Bass, and they're short credits to trash it. Lethea they could trash. So GG, not necessarily. They have 1 click to run HQ. Again, if they trash Lethea, now they can't run HQ, so I don't think that was maybe correct. That being said, if we draw a non-3-2 agenda, we have to jam in their remote server, so maybe that is correct. But this remote server is like not great. The best thing that, again, we can draw with wall-to-wall, we can get a spin doctor, and all we have to do is draw into a 3-2 agenda, of which we still have, I think 2 ASYEF and 2 ASYEF and 2 Atlas. So there's 4 and 22, so let's do this. So we'll start a turn. We'll do our triggers first. Why is it not asking us to do our triggers? Resolve an ability. Draw 1 card. Nothing. Trash a card to gain 3. We'll trash this. Install a 0 coster. Spin doctor. New remote. Draw 2. Come on. Shit. No agenda. No stinking agenda. That still means the Sphegator into Bass has teeth in the following turns. So we can put the corporate troubleshooter into server 3, which can be nice and mean. That's where we want it. Our money is not amazing. I do think we consider trashing the Stavka, but now we have corporate troubleshooter. I think we don't want to extract the Stavka. So I think we can keep a Regolith on the table. So we want to get a Regolith on the table. So we have a 2-to-1 to Sphegator. Again, they needed to trash this. So we have that as options. That's nice. We want to get the corporate troubleshooter in their remote server. They don't have a lot of credits. Can they get through a Cat Magnet? I don't think so. So here we can res the Regolith to take money off the Regolith. It's akin to clicking for a credit, but it betrays the information off of this. And I don't think we're going to empty this ever. So I think we're just going to click for a credit because I'd rather than be scared of what this is. It also means that we could, if we wanted to, we can Sphegator this into, actually, it's probably better to do the Lethea, put the Lethea back in and pull out the Lethea into server 3. There's another leech. Okay. That's some value from running 2 leech counters. We did trash one of the Rezekis, and by we did, I mean they did. Again, corporate troubleshooter, we can spend X credits to increase a res piece of ice protecting the server by X. And there's some really awkward breakpoints with the Dory. Unfortunately, though, our stuff goes in the innermost, so that's not particularly good. Here we can rev the Afshar. Doesn't really do much, but costs them at least 1 credit. They'll pay the bad publicity. If they want to go through, though, it'll be 2 credits, and we need to tax them. We have enough money, mind you, to win off the top of the deck. It's only 3 credits. We have Sphegator, so even if we do, so fire all, okay. They're just losing their bad publicity. Of course, and they lost 1, broke for 1, and they access. DreamNet draws a card, and we have no trashables in HQ besides the Sphegator, which we don't care about so much. All right, we could. What could we do here? Not too much. We could trash the Regolith. I think we trashed a Regolith into a 1 coster just to take it out of our deck, just so we have a bigger chance getting. Oh, hold on, I need to res this. So we'll do this to get a 1 coster. It'll be a wall-to-wall. We only have 1 wall-to-wall. We only have 1 wall-to-wall. Okay, awkward. Oh, we have no 1 costers. That's definitely a misplay. Wanted to undo that for sure, but okay, so be it. I thought we had 2 wall-to-wall. I think the older list did. Yep. That's fine. We could have shuffled it back in with Spin Doctor. I think that'd actually be fine. Yeah, I might. If that's cool. All right, we around that. I'm not actually sure if this is the right thing to do, but I'm going to pop the Spin Doctor to put a 1 coster back in my deck. I think we could do Lethea as well. So we can give us some flexibility here. We want to put the Lethea back here, probably the Spin Doctor actually. So I think we can do wall-to-wall Spin Doctor again. Yeah, that's actually likely better because that's just more card draw. So we'll put these back in. So now we can res the Regolith. Then we can go ahead and we'll start a turn. We'll go ahead and Sphegator this away. So we can get our 1 coster, which is wall-to-wall. Again, we can't get the card draw off of it because it wasn't installed during our start of turn, at the exact start of turn. But here again, if we draw one of our 3-2 agendas, of which again, there are, I think, 2 ASYEF, just checking, and then 2 hostile. Oh, this should not ask us. I did it again in the wrong window. Still nothing. Still holding on. We need to ice up central servers. They are getting leech counters, so they break the envelopment for very cheaply. Can we go gun a zero coster? Yeah, we could. Not clicklessly, but we could get the wall-to-wall down. We could extract the wall-to-wall, but again, we want to keep that. So I think we're going to ice up central servers. Again, just about all the ice we install, they break for credits, which is the issue because they're going to lock the top of R&D. So it's so much more important that we just break R&D lock. But even though we've got this far, the fact that we can't produce an agenda means we're likely going to lose. Because right now it's just the heart of the cards. Because once they run R&D, again, they break all of this for one credit, and we can't stop this late game rig. There's nothing to it. If we put corporate troubleshooter here on R&D, maybe, I think actually maybe we just want to draw an agenda, but if we draw an agenda, we're trashing our BAS, but that's actually fine. Okay. Thinking. They're going to have 9 credits, 10 credits. I'll have 2 leech counters. We can have corporate troubleshooter. We could have got Lethea and Nisei here. So if anything, we res the BAS. We extract the BAS. Wait, do you ever just use the BAS? So we can res the BAS. We can extract the BAS. Not sure what 2 costers we have in the list anymore. We definitely have a wraparound. We have, I think, a Maryland left. Did we install the Atlas? I feel like that's probably the best we have, and we can spend basically all our money into the boost of the Whoredom. And I think that's actually the most taxing, as cute as it would be to get the end of the run. Unfortunately, the Stavka on the inside is kind of gross. It's like not really where you want this thing at all. Immediately, though, we could trash all their breakers with the Stavka if we really wanted to. So I'm going to res the BAS. If we res the BAS, we're getting a Maryland. Huh. If we res the BAS, we're losing 3 credits. If we extract, it doesn't have to be res. So no matter what, we're getting the money back. Yeah, I think we just extract it. I don't know if we really want a 2-coster. Like, what are we excited to get? Because we're already going to use our Sveta Gore next turn anyways. Yeah, I think we can just go ahead and extract this. Get out BAS. Here, if they trash our Sveta Gore, we're actually in a really bad spot. So I would love to have another clicked install another Sveta Gore. But we have corporate troubleshooter and 16 credits if they don't trash our Sveta Gore. They have 9 credits. Again, all our ice is reduced by 1, by up to 2 more with the leech counter, and they have 1 credit on the Trickster Taka. And they have to run this remote server. Winchester is going to be 3 strength, so it's 3 credits with Adori. Whoredom is 1 credit. And the question is, can we make this up to strength to the point where they can't break it? We can make this plus 16 strength. We can make this 20 strength. So I think, honestly, we can. They're running HQ here. This gives them 2 more strength on the leech, which saves them a fair bit of credits, like 6 credits with Buzzsaw. It also draws them a card, of course. They're using the Taka credit here. We fire them broken, so they lose 1 bad publicity and 1 more. And they might just try and win off the top of R&D, and there's still so many agendas in R&D that we haven't been able to draw into. So again, they could just win off the top of R&D because none of our ice in the whole game at this point is going to keep an Anarch Breaker Suite out, let alone with all this like late game value stuff. Let's see if they dump into the twinning. If they jump into twinning here, I think we're pretty happy. Yes! They're accessing 3 here at Archer, Envelopment, Extract. And now they have only 1 twinning counter, so they can't win off the top of R&D in a single run. Huge for us. And the winning agenda is just in the remote server. They're coming here in R&D. Wait, they're not a deep dive deck, are they? We've seen too much influence. Issues like none of the stuff that we res taxes them out. Right? They have a bad publicity, so they break this for free. Mind you, it does get us some interest where we get a resed. They break that for free. They can only use twinning as many times as it's already charged once, if I'm not mistaken. The magnet they can break for 1. I don't think we res any of this because we have to res all of it. And I think our money is better used dumping into the corporate troubleshooter. Again, they could win here. They could see 2 up the top, run Archives deep dive. I think that's a chance. You should run corporate troubleshooter with Ledger, Leverett, and economic advantage on Stavka. That's an interesting idea, London. Run a remote server. I don't even know if, obviously at this point, Stavka is not even the best res. Oh, they saw 2 off the top. It looks like we're safe. A deep dive won't even do it. Again, they could do pinhole threading, run server 3. That would cost us. The cool thing is we got the corporate troubleshooter on the table without having to use our op ability, so we didn't reveal it. Okay. Thinking. This is where things get interesting. Because I do think we can make the Whoredom. The Whoredom is thinking, okay. We can let them break this. So this they could trace through. I think it's better to break it. Oh, good. They're using their leech counters on this, which is sick for us because the leech counters are worth 3 credits on the buzzsaw. Again, they're not playing around corporate troubleshooter, but they don't know it's there. Yes. Oh, yeah. So they want, or use all of them. Yeah, so the idea is they want to get this down to 3 strengths so Dory can boost. Maybe just cash in. Oh man, I'm feeling really bad. They shouldn't cash in here. They don't know about the corporate troubleshooter, but each of these is worth 3 credits. So it's up to them. Oh, they're using all the leeches. I feel bad. I feel like I might have baited them in here. Okay, so they have 11 credits. This is 3 strength. They can make it to 6 strength. So I'm just going to do this because it's been an entire turn. Now, if they go ahead and trash our Sphia Couture for last click, that is the issue because then we can't score this out. So we have to keep 3 credits. So the most we can boost into this is to make this, it'll be a 16 strength Totem, which seems pretty good. We can't get a 1 cost. So this ice, make it, I don't know, 13 strength. I didn't do the math. It seems big. All right, so now it's 17 strength. We were going to do that when they encounter, I guess. I think I did the window wrong. Not that bouncing off this, it does anything. But this is 17 strength, and if I'm not mistaken, it's for the entire turn, not for the entire run. So here they could boomerang run back, but they only have 1 click. So 17 strength is a nice way to kind of dunk on the buzzsaw there because it costs a fair few credits. Mind you, they could get this to 6 for free, but I don't think they're getting through this. Corporate troubleshoot is working. It's working. It's doing its thing. Oh, continue counter ice. That's on me. Whoops. Okay. 16 strength after the ice carver. Again, they can make that 13, but they're still kind of not having enough money here. It's for the whole turn too. So even if they overclock, they have to, again, deal with the Whoredom. They still have to deal with the Stavka after that. If they steal this, they don't win the game. And we could have gone even higher, but then if they trash the Sphia Tagore, which they should have done a long time ago, unfortunately, we would not be able to score out. Fire. Okay, we got a credit back. Oh, we actually could have spent 1 more because we're assuming we're going to get the Whoredom credit back. Yeah, that's a slight misplay. We could have made that 1 strength higher. It's credit perfect if you have SZF? Oh yeah. Well, technically it's more than credit perfect because we're 4, but also the Sphia Tagore. If they didn't trash this, it'd be if we went down to 0 and they didn't trash this, it's credit perfect. So they have 1 click left. They saw the top 2 cards of R&D. They saw 3 from HQ. They haven't checked archives, but they know that there's a purge in there. So now they're trashing this. Which, again, it's unfortunate to see that done on the last click, but you see the power of this card. People do not trash this a lot of times. It's 3 credits with bad publicity, but this gave us so many triggers of our ability and allowed us to have control over the game. Otherwise, we're just hoping the top of R&D gives us what we want. Oh, also we have a credit off of that, so maybe we could have even gone farther. Actually, because they couldn't have trashed both, we could have boosted the Whoredom a fair bit more. Let's just take a credit. Oh, we can do everything. Draw. I don't need to do any of this. Advance, advance, advance. Good game. That was an exciting one. And that's kind of the issue with Ob, is like Ob is really powerful and standard is, I think, a lot more options than startup, of course, with a bigger card pool. But currently in startup, like if you don't trash the Sphia Tagore, we're not doing anything. Like basically our whole ability is just 3 extract. So luckily the Sphia Tagore stuck on the table. Maybe we want to ice it up once. No Managarm or Anoetic. I like the deck. Yeah, it's a totally different game if they allow us to do our thing. Oh, they had deep dive. Whoa, they had deep dive. So they actually were trying to deep dive on archives. So the fact that they didn't see HQ, I think that was kind of a known quantity, obviously on our side, but I think they could have maybe sussed that out, considering the way that we drew and then jammed to their remote server. If we had an agenda, we would have fast advanced unless it was the 4-2s, of which our list does have a couple. So yeah, I don't think the HQ, I think you'd rather dump it to R&D, and they had a chance of maybe not winning, but at least getting to 6 points. Cool. All right, let's get another one. We're back in startup. It's another day, and it's a slightly different op list here. I'll be honest, the op list isn't really working out so much, and the problem is I just don't know if corpse with ice and defensive upgrades is enough. So we've actually swung a bit more into the defensive upgrades, which I think is something that ideally the endurance meta might struggle a bit more to deal with. So we're running Stavka, we're running a couple more 1-cost cards so that we can, at instant speed, even during a run sometimes, go get things like an Anoetic Void or Managarm Skunkworks. So unfortunately, we are going out of our way to make our deck largely, while a more exciting version, unfortunately a less consistent and probably less reliable version, and just playing PD, HB Precision Design, which I think is probably what you want to be doing if you want to win games regardless. Opening hand's not awful. We have some early ice, which is good enough. We're playing against Kit Peddler, who's going to be making a lot of code gates show up. We'll see if a Hyperbaric comes down. We definitely want to code gates on the outside, so having this on the inside is probably what you want. We can just get an early Regolith soon enough and make that into, I feel like our 1-costers are not amazing in this list anymore. We don't have a Lethea, I cut that, but we have Bast Chiraboga, a Managarm, and an Anoetic, so I think we can keep this. It could be a lot worse. I'm also not sure what kind of pressure that Kit can put out on turn 1, so we don't really need to ice up. Ooh, you can see your first card draw there? I didn't know that. So you don't really need to ice up Centrals too quickly, but The problem is we want to be a rush deck. Do we want to push out an Atlas behind a Sandstone? It's going to be a 5-strength Code Gate, which could be difficult for them to deal with unless they're on Oiler or some other nonsense. But we could get this pushed in. I feel like we don't really have to. I feel like we can start a new remote. We can get this and see if this like baits. Oh my God, that was loud. If that baits a run, and if it doesn't, we can consider slow rolling the this into something else, and we can just put a Stavka on HQ. It's not amazing, but I think a big value of this Stavka, with all these trashables in her hand, mind you, is that it can trash a 1-coster mid-run to get the Anoetic, or trash a 3-coster mid-run. And it looks like Shaper's just going to set up, so I think we called this a bit wrong. We thought they'd be a bit more aggressive, but that's okay. We can at least solve our money issues. So you can res this, take 3, and I'm just going to put down a wall-to-wall on the table. We got to remember this only triggers one of its 4 bullet points because we have another asset resed, but this allows us to have a 1-coster, so maybe at instant speed we can trash this to go get an Anoetic, which I don't know how Shaper's going to deal with that. Again, Kit only has 10 influence, so we might not see Light the Fires or more likely Pinhole Threadings. We'll res this just to get the credits. I don't think we need a draw card. We're happy with our hand here. Oh, that's perfect. This on the outside will be a Code Gate, which is a bit unfortunate, but at least our Sandstone will be a proper barrier. And then we're just about to ready to run to crack this next turn. So next turn we can trash this for a 1-coster. So I think that's generally just going to be like an Ice Wall. That's fine on the outside actually. And then go from there. We can install Advance our Atlas. So we have a good turn set up here. And they're on 9 credits, mind you. They have Proco, they have Telework, they have Daily Cast. So they're getting a good bit of drip. So let's see how they're going to put pressure on. Cyber Trooper to loot means they're more likely to be on Aesop's Pawn Shop and things like Oiler and Gauss. And maybe even like the new Propeller. Just take the money. All right, so we'll finish this. We'll use our ability to get a 1-coster. We can get a Malapert. I think another ice here would be good. I don't know how they're going to deal with 3 ice, and we want to get this with a counter on it. It's so important. We could get a Malapert if we're a bit greedy, but we have the second agenda in hand and some card draw, so we'll just put that on server 1. We'll go server 1, advance. And so ideally, we're scoring out the Atlas as much as possible with an advancement counter on it, an extra advancement counter to get that agenda counter, excuse me. And so we can use that instant speed to find our hostile takeover to score our last point, to find any of our combo pieces or our defensive upgrades, which are all very powerful. And it looks like Falco's going to let us have this, just setting up for that late game where we're going to have to worry about R&D with a Conduit or a Stargate. So far, they aren't showing a reason that they could play the twinning yet. But this is Shaper late game, and we have to rush it because we're not going to win against the inevitability of all this drip economy. We have to advance ice, right? Yeah, so we'll just gain credits. Oh, we can do everything, all of them. Okay. Place 1 advancement. Yeah, we might as well advance the Ice Wall. This eventually does get trashed, for better for worse, to go get a 0-coster sometimes. But let's go get Atlas with a token. Above the Law there would have been okay. The Proco has done enough. They're also on Test Run, which is very interesting. A lot of times that means something like Femme Fatale or some of the bigger stuff. This is also just like recursion, right? Yeah, stack or keep. And there's a Gordian Blade. Not what I was expecting, but definitely okay. They can deal with the Ice Wall for 1 credit, and this retains strength. So we'll see if they're on things like, and I don't think we have a virus in this list. Oh, we do, but we'll see if they're on things like what's it called, Palangi, or even Egret. I think is a legal card, right? Draw 1 card, gain a credit. They're just not running. Ooh, is that better than Manigarm? Probably. All right. So here we want to get the second Atlas in. This one I don't think we need a counter as much, so we can actually go ahead and just build the classic Precision Design remote server. We're paying, what is it, 7 influence, half our influence to do this out of faction, but that's what we got to do. And hopefully we have the op ability to be a bit fast and a bit consistent. Yeah, this is definitely a big You don't always see this. I think you're more likely expecting a virus or a Malapert, but this is a hard server to assail, that's for sure. And this Ice Wall is only getting better and better. DZ, Ice Carver, okay, maybe on fixed strength breakers, but we're just going to get away with just getting all this value. Do we need a draw here? I don't think we do, because we're going to have to discard. Again, sometimes it's fine just to discard your worst card. Like a Whoredom is whatever. I think we're going to draw. We need agendas. Yeah, we can just discard a card. It's not a big deal. We'll do advance, advance, advance. So now we're 1 hostile away and 1 more 3/2 away. And we want the Stavka on the outside because we can trash the Ice Wall. But actually, we have our good 0-costers here. The Malapert's not that useful. We can actually install it and then score the hostile on top of it. But we now really need to get a 4-coster resed, because once we have a 4-coster resed, we can trash it to get a Bastura at instant speed, as long as we have a Sviatakor on the table. So what are we throwing out here? We don't actually need the Regolith, but it's not the worst thing to have something to put in the remote server. We have a lot of other options though. Stavka is nice. Again, R&D is wide open. We have the Spin Doctor if they have to put down a Stargate, so that's okay. So I think our R&D will probably be like Sandstone Whoredom. I think it's probably a Malapert. Like, it's only going to trigger once more. All right, they have 17 credits. Test Run's going to bring down something, maybe something expensive. It's a program from their stack. It's just a Chameleon. Wow, they paid 3 credits to tutor that. It's 5 strength. cool because of the Cyber Trooper Talutes, so now they can break everything. But this, mind you, is so click intensive. This is just a Stavka, which we can make 7 strength. Sick. Yeah, okay. What are they? This one is, it doesn't say on it. Sentry, barrier. Okay, I would expect JNet to say what they called. When you install Chameleon, you name a type. So we can res the Stavka. We can make a 7 strength. So we can just start trashing some stuff. I think the wall-to-wall is probably fine to trash. We can also get a 0-coster here, which the speed to core is exactly what we want, because now we can make the Stavka into, what's it called? Into, oh, it's a code gate too. That's fine. They can break this. I've totally forgot. The kid. It's been so long since they ran. You want to break it? Yeah, it's 6 strength because of the Ice Carver, but Gordian Blade can break it. Yeah, I almost forgot that too, but with Kit, they can break it if they want to. It's a bit expensive on 6, but this is the first run that they've made. And luckily, HQ is pretty clean here. But we basically traded our wall-to-wall to speed to core, which I think is what we wanted to do anyways. And now we have a 4-coster res. So if we draw a 3-2 off the top, we can go get, what's it called? We can go get Bass Chiraboga. We have to decide to get Bass first, unfortunately. And in terms of the 3-2s less than our list, we have 1 more Atlas. We have 1 wall to, what's it called? Above the Law. And we have 2 Azef. So that's 4 and 32. So not the most likely. But I think we want to get a Bass in the remote server regardless. And then we have to protect R&D. So I think we're going to do it because I don't think we need to protect HQ. Now this is a Sentry. So now it's only 1 strength. So they break it for Chameleon credits. What do they access? Stavka. Okay. And Chameleon's a big reason why this is a bit difficult. The problem with Chameleon builds is like, while Chameleon's really cute, you just don't have a lot of click compression to be able to install these over and over every single turn. Because that's not only expensive, it gets a bit better with DZ and of course Cyber Trooper. It's just, it's a lot of actions. So we'll do our trash a card here. We'll get a 3-coster from our deck. We'll put a Bass Chiraboga in server 1. So if we chop deck a 3-2 agenda, we can score that out. It's a hedge fund. That's fine. So I think here we're just going to pivot to icing up R&D because that's clearly where the game is right now. So we'll do the hedge fund. Sandstone is actually annoying enough. It will actually be always breakable with Chameleon, but it forces a Chameleon every turn. So we'll put that on R&D. And then we'll put the Whoredom on the outside just so that it eats the kits once first per turn encounter into a code gate. So we have to ice up R&D. And now we're hoping to top deck. We do have that Spin Doctor. And actually, if we want to, it might be correct here to trash the Ice Wall with Svea Core if they don't trash it, which I think they generally should. So we can get a Spin Doctor on the table. All right, they just called Barrier. So this Chameleon breaks barriers of 5 strength, so they can deal with this. So if the inside was a Stavka, we'd actually have teeth here. So 3 credits. This is getting expensive for them. Sandstone can get res. It's 4 strength because of the 1 virus counter, so they can break it for 1 credit. Not too bad. This is where our cat looks a bit better. And they get single access here, and they need to lock the top of the deck, but we're going to be shuffling anyways and triple drawing, so there's a chance it's not worth it. Oh, are they deep diving us? I think they're deep diving us. Damn. Checking archives. No, they can't. They don't have enough clicks. It's really hard to deep dive when you have to install 1 or 2 Chameleons. So I'm not that worried about deep dive in this list. I don't know what their multi-access is. And Chameleon returning. So start a turn. Svea Core. Unfortunately, we're getting rid of the Ice Wall because we want to get a Spin Doctor on the table clicklessly. So the remote server is a bit easier to charge, still a bit expensive. Actually, no, the defensive remotes or defensive upgrades are a bit hard. So do Spin Doctor into new remote resed. We didn't draw. Okay, unfortunately, we drew an actual agenda. We wanted to draw a 3-2. We have 3 of the non-3-2 agendas on the list. We have 3 4-2s. Do we just pivot to trash the Bass to score the agenda? Honestly, yeah, probably. I think we do. They don't have a lot of money. The Anoetic Manic Arm is good enough. So unfortunately, Bass can bring you back. Boss Geek is late to the party. Oh, no way. Coffee's getting cold. So that makes sense. They're on a Palace Cafe list, which I appreciate at this time of day. Still in the bar. Okay, that's trashed. We install an agenda. We want to advance this once for sure. And then we can put an ice out here. I think I'm going to put a code gate. We could also put our Stavka, which again will be a 4-coster we can trash on this remote server, which is pretty valuable. And this gives us some flexibility where if they don't install their Sentry Breaker or they don't have enough money with a Stavka, we can kind of shut the door there on them. But we want to get a 4-coster res so we can Spin Doctor back into Bass. That being said, if we score this Oaktown renovation, we can just pull the Hostile next turn. But we're going to push the Oaktown here. We only have 11 credits. But again, I think a lot of times all we have to do is res a single Sandstone and they still have to install their Chameleon, deal with Manigarm, deal with Anoetic, and we can trigger Anoetic twice pretty easily with the credits and with the Spin Doctor on the table. And it's also hard to deny us credits. We could spend all our money resing this stuff, and if they don't trash the Svea Core, we can just trash an ice on a central server to advance this out. I think you get to use Bass for value to install, right? Oh my god. I forgot that we can just use Bass for an install there. Okay, I'm just taking your credit. Okay, huge plays. Thanks so much. Yeah, I forgot we can just click Bass. It doesn't cost anything. We could have just gained an extra click. I'm just gonna click for a credit. Oh man. I fear I've done that already on recording, that I haven't used Bass. I've overinstalled it. Fantastic. All right, cool. We got each other's back. I appreciate that. Okay. So let's see. They have the Gordian Blade. They're gonna have 4 credits. Mind you, they can click for 3. Again, chameleons come down. The first one comes for 1, and that's where it's hard also to install multiple ones, while the DZ only helps for the first time in turn. That's nice. Your first chameleon comes down cheap. Yeah, so I don't want to reveal, but when this deck only has 2 costers, if I'm not mistaken, there's not a lot of ice in the format that I'm excited to play on 2 costs. It's like Owl, I think. No, not Owl. Sorry, Owl's not in startup, but you have like Wraparound, which is not bad. It's not actively very good in the meta right now, but I think Wraparound's the one that I would most likely consider to play. Spin Doctor getting... Yep, there's the egret, the bird. So now our Sandstone is a code gate and a sentry, and of course a barrier itself. So now they can actually get through it with a single Gordian, but there might not be that many more turns in the game. Funny enough, we can also trash the Sandstone to get a 2-coster, but again, the 2-cost slot in startup is a bit rough, as mostly assets, like things like Maryland, which we're not playing in this version, and things like Regolith, which we have both accounted for, and I don't want to use our Spin Doctor. So we're going to actually not speak it off. I should just hit mandatory draw, it'll ask us. All right, there's a 3-2. So we're just going to score this one out. Again, they have a lot of work to do. They have no agendas. And from here, we can score one of the hostiles from our deck if they can't threaten Clot. And I'm not expecting Kit to have Clot in their deck. We haven't seen self-modifying code or simulchip yet, and I think there's a big chance that those are in the list. Mind you, they are on test run. But I think the big issue here, oh, maybe they're on Stargate, is that Kit only has 10 influence, so it's hard sometimes to play Clot. Is it better for them to trash this for 2 credits or us to get the Bass back into the deck? I honestly am okay with them trashing this. Getting 2 unknown cards back into the deck is actually reasonable, but I feel like their money is more important, because if they install Stargate, run this, it's going to be expensive, so they can pay 2 on this. It's also one of the few games where we haven't scored a hostile early, and you see that bad publicity really does matter. And this is their last click. They need to somehow win in 2 clicks or threaten Clot. And if they run last click, we can always just pull the hostile to hand, so we're pretty safe here because it's going to be a single axis. The Code Gate Sentry, it's now going to be, what is it? Oh, continuing counter ice, 4 strength, 3 strength. Because the encounter and the encounter. So that's only 1 credit. Gordian Blade retaining strength, not too bad. But again, there's a lot of stuff to install. That's where the Paolo's Cafe definitely comes down. And that should be it. So while we could shuffle to get a new card off the top, we really don't need to here. We're just going to pull, get the hostile, get in the table. And our remote server didn't matter. They never charged it. But we are a fast enough deck, and unfortunately, with all these installs, it's a really cool deck that they have. It might be a bit difficult to get all that stuff down. You definitely need the coffee. You need the Paolo's Cafe as soon as possible, that's for sure. And they could have done a lot of work with bad publicity. Yeah, that's kind of the issue right now, is that runners are really good, and they have in startup and in standard that inevitability over time engine. Cards like Rozeki, cards like, well, there's more stuff even in standard, but startup still has that issue. And so a lot of corps have to deal with that sort of deck. They have to rush out the endurance, the botches, the boomerangs. So corp decks are going really fast. They're trying to win by turn 9, turn 10. And then the runner decks are doing something more interesting, kind of fall by the wayside, which is a bit of a bummer. And I'm hoping to get that fixed, because let me tell you, this deck, even this deck in startup, is not fast enough. All right, Startup Bob, we're playing against Hoshiko. This is the version that has some more Anoetic Voids in it and a Mana Garm, because you just need those upgrades, because you're struggling really to deal with some of the better stuff on the runner side. Thanks, you too. Opening hand's not amazing. Like, while we have the Anoetic, we really don't have any and the run ice to jam behind. Scoring an early odds up is pretty ugly. You want to generally win with this or beat it later on in the game, because it's hard to trash your board state on turn 1, especially if nothing of your stuff is rezzed. So we're going to definitely hit the mulligan button there. Is that the exact same hand? That's like only 1 card different. And this is a 1 of. What happened? All right. So instead of jamming up, we're going to have to react to our what we've drawn. And we want to also deal with Hoshiko, because Hoshiko, she gets value from running central servers. So we're just going to ice up our central servers, so Hoshiko isn't running very actively. These are the exact ice we want in their deck to slow her down. They don't end the run. Well, Afshar does. It's really good on HQ, but this is good enough. And also, if we can get some of this stuff res, we now have targets for our Sphia Tagore. So resing the Afshar, that's going to connect. She's going to lose 2 credits there. Not too bad. If she wants to run a R&D here, we can still do a cheap res. So we're going to res a Tithe. You're not really expecting that. Let's see if this net damage actually matters, but we're going to get a credit back. Let's hit something good. We hit a Keiko. That's pretty good. Not something you really want to get down, but it represents a credit a turn, which... Startup Netrunner, that's important. And we're going to lose a Regolith off the top, which actually would have been a perfect draw. So Keiko Hoshiko, mind you, sorry, is still online. And we have double Stavka, which is kind of ugly. This list is on 3 Stavkas, which I think might be one too many. It's pretty good mid-run to trash a 1 coster to go get an Anoetic. Once your Anoetic is in hand, we don't have influence really for sprint to get this back. But from there, I think we can draw once here and click for credits. But I think if she takes down their Sphia to core, we're okay. And this is what I don't love about icing centrals in the early game is now like the amount of time we need to draw into an ice for a remote server is actually pretty low. Or sorry, it's way too high. So now she's going to set up with all her like trash stuff and get the free card draw. And that's not good for us. Cards in archives now too. So if you want to, you can always run archives. And there's Paladin Puemo, our first credit per turn card. And unfortunately, we really don't have much to show here. If we draw again, we have to discard something. Oh, this is awful. I think we need a credit. I'm just gonna put this on HQ. It means on our turn, we can actually res this to crack it and to make it into a regolith, which is just exactly what we want. Ideally, we have another piece of ice that actually ends a run. And now DreamNet means that Archives run is so much better. This is a disgusting amount of value. And the amount of value they can generate by just installing a couple cards versus what we have to do is night and day in startup versus standard as a corp. So this feels really rough when we're just clicking for credits and the amount of stuff they do all at once. All right, so we can't really ice up the Malapert very well. Or sorry, not the Malapert, the regolith we can get from the Mavirus. They'll definitely trash it. So we might want to wait a bit. Again, we can just put this in a new remote server and click for credits, but this is way too slow. This is definitely way too slow, especially when they have the majority of their engine already setting up. It's only a matter of time before the twinning comes down, and now the top of R&D is basically a foregone conclusion. At least here we get some card draw. We'll draw first, gain a credit, place an advancement. Doesn't really matter what we advance. Okay. And now we have a Hordem for the remote server. So we can start building a remote server. We're playing a bit slower than I'm used to. It's not the worst so far. Oh, hold on. Whoops. Of course, we might as well ice up the Malapert. Doesn't really do anything else. Yeah, we'll ice up the Malapert, of course. And in here, we need more money again, but next turn we can make them a virus into a regolith. And here we're going to need at least 8 credits. They haven't shown any breakers yet, but they've drawn a fair bit. They've gone through already a quarter of their deck. The chance of them having something is pretty impactful. We are okay to deal with botulists. Ideally, we crack them a virus after they install a virus, but they're just going to go for their value over time stuff. And the twinning is the issue here. We're going to lose this wall-to-wall for sure. Can't let us have that. That's a Gachapon. That can get the twinning. It's a virtual card. So we'll see what we need here, but I do think we just need to get them a virus down. Sorry, them a virus into regolith. Okay, we can just res them a virus, and instead of cracking it, we can get 6 credits off extract and jam in their remote server. At the same time, we can put the Anoetic in there. At this point, they probably found their Buzzsaw. So 2 coster, that's a regolith. It's in server 2. We've got a lot of money off of that. We can hit this once. Do we hit it again or do we install the Anoetic on top of it? I think we can just hit it again because next turn we can do install advanced Anoetic. Install advanced Anoetic. Yeah, I think that's fair. And now we have good enough money. The remote server can be scary. And they now know that our Mavirus is gone if we're running more than one. So we'll see the botchless if they show up. And there's the twinning. This is where we've now been locked entirely off of R&D. They're even boomeranging it through. So now they can see the top 2 cards of R&D every single turn. And let me tell you, there's just no ice really that can keep them out of that from that happening. So luckily we have enough points in our hand. They're going to crack mid-run. Their Gachapon doesn't seem like really good targets here. In fact, nothing. They can't install anything. The second twinning trashes their twinning. This is a full whiff. So they're going to shuffle back. Harmony AR Therapy, a bit surprising. I don't know if the game's going to go long enough. Dirty Laundry and Sure Gamble. They're going to lose a Gachapon, a Dirty Laundry, and a twinning. So they're going to boomerang through this again. They could just take them that damage, and they can see probably 2 here off the top. They get the card and their credit because they're digital. Stealing a hostile. Again, we want one of those. Otherwise, we have to score a bunch of 2-pointers. And this is the point where the arms race of R&D is kind of a bit lost here, where now we're trying to decide whether we score out or whether we address the twinning. We do have the Hordem. That's not the worst. Stavka doesn't really make sense if they don't have icebreakers. So we can put this on R&D. We can hit this a couple times and hopefully weather the storm here. And I think next turn we can probably just like hit the regolith, install the Zef and the Anoetic. I think the Zef could do something here. I want to generally advance the Atlas, but we also can finish the regolith to get a 1-coster from our deck. We can just be an ice wall in their remote server, which is largely good enough. R&D still wide open. Purge virus counters. Okay. But they're getting so much value over the turn. They just haven't shown breakers yet. And luckily we have stuff into Hordem, which is pretty good. Sure, Gamble. Okay. Again, we might want to just put an ice wall in archives to keep their ability out, but I think it might be better on the remote server. It might be better on the remote server. We got the Managarm. So here we get an ice wall, a Tithe. If we do the ice wall in archives, they can't get free value from Hoshiko, which is actually a lot of value. So I think we're going to do that. I do think keeping on the remote server is not a bad idea, because if they put a breaker and a botchless, they're largely through. And unfortunately, I don't know if we can rely on the Anoetic. The Managram is like maybe good enough. The Anoetic, we're going to have to trash cards from hand, and I think we like all their cards from our hand, so we'll start here. And this also makes it harder for them to pinhole threat us. I don't know if they're on that. Again, they've gone through half their deck so far. We've seen Bravado, and I think we saw Harmony AR Therapy, which is still some influence. But there's the Buzzsaw, so Codegate, they can deal with the Stavka. Afshar, again, is it's 3 credits, which is not bad for a 3-credit ice. And we have an Anoetics and Project Alice in there, and they can flesh out basically nearly our whole hand. So this is bad. Our centrals can be heavily locked. And I feel a lot of times when you're playing the DreamNet, you just ignore. You totally ignore the remote server because you can have enough pressure on the top of R&D. Now, luckily here, our Stavka does get value. They didn't access it. They basically absolutely destroyed everything else in our hand. So we lost our Anoetics, we lost our Spin Doctor, and they stole, of course, the 2-point agenda. So here, we can Malapert, we can Azyef. What do we trash with the Azyef? The Afshar is still pretty good. I think it's the Ice Wall that probably goes. It is doing a fair bit of work. I don't even know if we have to score this. I do think we need to keep them out of central servers. The twinning is so easy for them to get value. We just have to see the Trickster Taka come down. Currently, this remote server they can largely deal with, but I think we have to ice up R&D. And I don't want to put this down naked because it, can they deal with this? Stavka Hordem? Well, maybe with a Botulus. I'll just do this. I don't want to put this into a naked remote server. It's obviously a very powerful card, but for them, they can get a DreamNet draw off of it and a credit. So that's pretty good. So hopefully we just have to protect R&D like this hard. Because again, it's so hard to deal with the power of the twinning. They can see 2 cards every turn, no problem. Moshing, they threw out another Buzzsaw, that's good for us. They threw out Rizeki, surprising, but they only need 2 more good accesses for the game to be over. It's more influence as well. And they definitely want to install a thing a turn, or at least play an event that costs money. So there's the Adore. So now our remote server is awful. They have enough virtuals, 1, 2, 3. So again, it breaks Stavka for actually 9 credits. So our remote server is now entirely fallen apart until we get an Anoetic back in our list, which is pretty difficult. So what are we trashing here? The Tithe. It breaks Tithe for free. It's the Tithe. We'll res this. I don't know what we're going to get for it. We'll find out after we do the meat damage. We get a 0 cost or 2. We can get a Spin Doctor. New remote server. Get us some more options. Oh boy. Let's see what we get. So we'll do that as Azyef first for 2 meat damage. We hit a Boomerang and a Pinhole Threading. Both good targets to hit in this matchup. That's for sure. And search for a non-agenda card. The question is, what do we want to get here? It's just going to be added to our hand. We have nothing that's really good in this matchup. The Bash Chiraboga is nice enough. We do have to trash a fair things with the Stavka again. It's 9 credits for them to break it the first time. What are we getting here? I think the Sandstone is like pretty reasonable. There's not a lot of 2-costers we can get. Crisium Grid doesn't help. It doesn't do anything against twinning, which doesn't need a successful run. It's just whenever you breach, so that's not really a great inclusion. Envelopment is not too expensive. It's like considerably the same cost to break with a Sandstone on the face check, so it's not amazing if they're on Cleaver, and we're expecting them to be on Cleaver. At least it's better into Boomerang. I think I'm just going to get that. We'll just put this in remote server and hope. Maybe it stays a turn. Kind of unlikely. Mind you, Stavka's only for a single run, so if they like pay 2 clicks with the Managram, like this remote server is not going to last. I think they can just run the remote server very easy with 18 credits, and at this point, we're out of the game. We have gone too slow. They've got down all the breakers where they break our ice for not a lot of money, and we cannot force them into the remote server, or we cannot force them enough times to the remote server. And every turn now, they can flush out HQC3 cards. And they could be locking top of R&D, but I think they are respecting certain stuff, like some of the sentries. But again, now anytime we draw, it's just kind of agendas for them. Dream to draw. Now they breach, twinning, Sandstone, Sphere Core. Ooh, they missed the agenda. And they trash the Sphere Core. It's just so hard to deal with twinning. So much you're feeling like you're just getting lucky. It's just like all the pressure in a single card. I think we're going to be able to get up to 4 points. Oh, you never like to see that. At least here we can pull another card with our Malapert. What do we want? Extract is like not the worst. We can extract the 1-coster for another 0-coster, and we can get the Anoetic. That's good. I think we'll do the extract because that allows us to extract the Malapert into an Anoetic. Of course, we have to get the Anoetic back in our deck with a Spin Doctor, which is the thing we're going to shuffle back here. But again, they have 17 credits. They're getting 2 credits a turn, no Keiko. And the Ice Carver now means that our Stavkas are only 6 strength. So it saves 3 credits. Do we res the Stavka? What can we do with it? Cost them either 3 credits or 6 credits. Not a big swing. And the Hordem is, again, now only 1 credit. So this is the problem, is like where you think you have good ice and then you get to the mid to late game and then you realize Anarchs break everything for pennies, literally pennies. If we gave them a hostile takeover, like this is again, it's going to be 3 credits and this is going to be 1 credit. And that's somehow we're meant to keep them out with the twinning where they're going to see the top 2 cards of the deck. However, if you just don't go fast enough, there is no way that the ice can deal with it. We need to maybe play more Engram flushes, right? So here's the Stavka. We could trash the ice wall. At this point, the ice wall is not doing much and we can get a 0 coster. So we can get the, what's it called in the remote server? The Anoetic. I think that's probably our play here. So we'll get the Anoetic back. What else could we consider getting back? I think the Spin Doctor seems good. We'll res the Stavka. We'll trash this. We'll get the Anoetic in the remote server. And so now it's 7 strength. It's going to be 6 strength as soon as they encounter it. So it's only 6 credits for 1 single run. After that, it's 3 credits. I think that's the most taxing ice in our list. Everything else, I think, costs at most 4 credits. And development is one of those, and it doesn't really last long. It's a Hortem. This they break for 1 credit. Fantastic. And now they can see the top 2 cards of the deck. Luckily, we have enough agendas in the hand to like just win. But there goes our Spin Doctor. We have an Extract as well, so we can get another Spin Doctor back if we need to. And Daily Cast. So they only have 4 credits now. Again, they're going to get 2 credits from this, 1 from this, 1 from that. So here we definitely need to jam the Oaktown renovation. So we're going to start here for sure, install advanced. The question is, what do we do with our last click? If we extract the Malapert into a Spin Doctor, we're going to have too many cards in hand. If we hedge fund, then it makes the agenda here 1 and 4. I think we're going to need the hedge fund though, because we need enough money here. We can just extract. I think we need the Spin Doctor on the table as well. It also means that we can more easily do the Anoetic. So we'll do the Spin Doctor. Sphia Tagore actually is interesting as well. It's not that we can score out this thing with the, we've also shuffled, which is worth knowing. The Bass is still in the list. I think the Sphia Tagore is actually probably fine, but I kind of like the card draw. So we'll do Spin Doctor. But we need a Sphia Tagore eventually if we want to win off Bass Chiriboga. Oh, no. New remote. Draw 2. More agendas. Discard down. We don't need 2 of those. Now the top of R&D is fresh. Again, they can see 2 cards every turn. The Spin Doctor's on the table. We have enough for Anoetic Managarm, and we can res some ice. And this is a really easy agenda to score, even if we're on low credits. They're going to start with the moshing. Again, we'll see if they're on another pinhole threading, which is obviously an issue for us because we're basically, Anoetic is the only way that we can actually score agendas behind ice. So that again, they break for nearly credits. At least this will be 6 and to 1. Boomerang is going to be a good start, but they're just going to try and hit R&D over and over again. And I don't blame them. Continue encounter. This saves some money. It also isn't installable to cost money, so it gets charged on the twinning. Continue to approach ice. Again, this is 1 credit. The question here is whether we hit with Spin Doctor to shuffle. If we do that now, we put an Oaktown back into the deck. I think we're not going to do it, but they're going to see 2 here probably with the twinning. DreamNet also card and credit, an immense amount of value. But it's all about that last hostile. Otherwise, we have to Bass Chiriboga out. No hit. Nothing. So top of R&D is fresh. Boomerang gets shuffled back. Bass is still in there, right? Ooh, Bravado HQ, likely, yeah. That makes sense. Continue encounter. This is going to cost them 3 credits. 1 to break, 2 to loss. But they're going to make all that money back. So here they want them not to, we want them not to hit the Oaktown because then, of course, they're on game point. They can only see a single to wall. Whether they trash that, I don't think they have the money to. They will get more money back off of that Bravado. So here are 10 credits. Pretty good. Okay. They know that we have this card. We have to score this out. At this point, the game is all about that last, either a 3-2 agenda or that last hostile. And luckily we have Spin Doctor. We don't have a Sphia Tagore on the table. We have to discard something here. I think we don't need 2 hedge funds. Sometimes it's all right to keep less trashables in hand because if they trash this, they can see more cards. But it's the top 2 cards of R&D. One of them is known. One of them is unknown. But it's all about drawing that last one or getting the Bass down and protecting in server 2. We also could consider trying to jam this into server 2 next turn. We might need to put a 3rd ice there, but we could do install advance ice. We'll still have 4 cards in hand and we still have Anoetic Managarm. That actually might do it. And we just have to like, you know, pray that R&D works out. Trickster Taka coming down a bit late, but an easy way to get charges. And they can flush 2 here, so we just need them to miss. So they're through for 3 credits. Again, this, they can't break all the subroutines, so they lose 2. They break it for 1 with the 2 Code Gate subroutine break on Buzzsaw. Low strength ice, 0 strength, can't get lower. Technically can, I guess. So please whiff here. They have to see probably 2. Shit, they got the Oaktown. Now they're on game point. So now we have to just top deck an agenda, and we probably have to shuffle with Spin Doctor because we know that they know the top of the deck. Leech coming down. Again, so much of our deck is just being held up specifically by Anoetic Managarm. The ice really doesn't matter that much. It's so much about the defensive upgrades. So the question is here, this is a known card on top of R&D and we know it's not an agenda. Do we want to go out of the way to shuffle with Spin Doctor to give us a chance to draw a non-agenda? And I think the chance is yes. I think we need to force them into this, but more likely they're just not going to run this and they're going to try and win off R&D, which we have no power over that. So I am going to go for the shuffle here. We have a 1 in 16 for the win. If we get a Sphia to Gore on the table too, we can get the Bass, which actually could do something here. Okay, that's clearly not it. So we can extract the Stavka, which they break for 3 credits to get a Bass Chiriboga in the remote server. They have 2 cards on top of R&D they can see clicklessly. They also can use Trickster Taka only during runs, so they can't boost the twinning on our turn. We have to think here. So the question is, what do? We can extract this to get a Bass. We'll have 2 clicks left. If we fire the Bass, we don't get our op ability. And then we'll still have 3 clicks, so it doesn't really do much. If we draw, can we jam an agenda? Yeah, we can draw at least once. Okay, so we either hold this in hand. Okay, I think there's some plays here, and this is where we're going to see in retrospect whether this works out. The top of R&D is, again, 2 unknown. We have 3, 6, 7, so there's only 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 agendas and 16 cards, 1 and 4, so they can get it off the top. I think if anything, we can extract the Stavka to put into the remote server Bass Chiriboga. If they run the Bass, so be it. If they run HQ and swap the Atlas, so be it as well, but at least this remote server, it makes it look like that game is in R&D or in server 2. We can also just jam the Atlas. And here they'll have to run this back twice with Managram. I feel like this is safer in the remote server, so I think we actually just put this in a remote server, and then we just ice up R&D once more, and this is the most taxing ice. If we do that, we still have enough cards for Anoetic twice. I think this is the best play. I do think there's a chance that getting the Bass is correct, and then just hoping that they don't hit the 1 in HQ or the 2 in HQ if they use the twinning here. But here they know that they're on the clock here, Atlas in the remote server. Boomerang coming down. On the Stavka, again, that doesn't save that much. It's only 2 strength, so it saves 3 credits here. So we just have to hope the top of the deck doesn't do it. I think a big reason for the install is to get a twinning charge. Okay, if we res here on the Sandstone, we're going to go down to 3 credits. Sorry, to 12 credits. We need 8 for this and some for Anoetic, so I think we're okay here. We also need to res the Managram, of course. So the 1 virus counter, so this actually does cost them 3 credits. So this whole server still only cost them 4 credits in a Boomerang. They also could just bounce off of this to save money, but they have Trickster. And again, now it just comes to the top of the deck, and so much of this is just praying R&D holds up when you're playing against the twinning, which is just such an immense amount of pressure for a single card that's so easy to play in these lists. Again, this changes when startup rotates where all these companions go, and then you actually have to do something a bit more interesting. But they can see 2 here, and we hope. Shit. Good game. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Whoa. Man, this is so hard. Again, top of R&D, they saw 2 cards hit 2 agendas. That's unlucky. I think there's only 4 agendas in there. Yeah, there's only 4 agendas and they found both of them. So I think we had a chance of getting through there. That's just kind of unfortunate. Yeah, totally. But that's kind of the pressure you see. And this is where a startup corpse gets so hard, right? Like there's no ice that keeps this rig down. I think there's a chance if you're playing again, and I think HB is a lot of times the answer, maybe GameNet with some of the more taxing ice as well, is like all this mid-range stuff gets broken for pennies. Ice Carver, all these breakers, all this like clickless economy from this. It's so difficult that I feel like almost every deck that I build kind of gets to that eventuality where we're just Anoetic Managram all the time. And even then, if they have Pinhole Threading, which mind you, we did trash one to meet damage, that's all we got. So this is quite difficult, and I don't know what to do about it. I've been avoiding playing Corp and Startup because, again, the lat deck is, we haven't seen it in this video, and that's because just about every lat deck we played against in this list, we lose. And I think against really good skill play against that lat deck, this deck probably has a less than a 10% win chance. If they're playing Pinhole Threading, I would think it could even be 0 sometimes. Thanks for the game. And that's an issue. I think that's just inherently an issue with Startup, and why I do, when I play Corp, enjoy Standard by a huge mile. And while Endurance still is a very powerful card, and you're still seeing very similar value-based decks do well in Standard, as a Corp, you have so many ways to interact back for the runner. You can trash their boat. You can tag them. You can do so much more as opposed to this, where you're just trying to hold on, try and protect an agenda, and just hope your centrals hold. And even in this matchup where we're going a bit slow, you saw that once they do get set up, it's just credits, it's pennies. They could just about do anything they want, and we just have to hope that we're holding on and hope that we're doing enough to push the game forward, that we're still trying to stay up to speed with them, which is very, very difficult. And that's kind of what it came with the op. You know, we started somewhere a bit more exciting, a bit more fun, but over time you end up back here, and this is a bit more consistent. But still, we just have no answer for the R&D pressure, because if we're putting our good defensive upgrades on the remote server, we're not doing it on R&D, and I don't know what to do in this. I wonder if we can actually just end up playing Kayambe. Maybe that's good enough for the list. I don't know. Here on the Metropole Grid, we recently launched a Patreon page and the response has been absolutely overwhelming. Thank you so much to everyone who's contributing to this channel. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone at the Sure Gamble or higher tier, and of course, everyone in the Daily Cast tier who's supporting this channel. It is absolutely appreciated. But a huge thank you to Spooky Noises, Chris, Paudrigo Roosh, Levi Corner, Sebastian Koch, Jason Gessner, Jalen Horn, Matthew Shanwell, Lee Butler, Andrew Robertson, Lucas, Scott S., Luke Dennis, Jossie Baron, Taekwon Dean, Zane Shrev, Bookkeeper, New Object, Michaelis Magos, Chris Mitchell, PR Small, Aspa Channel, Kin Elwin, Daniel Cook, Joe T, Artem Michalson, Matt Conduit, Encoder, Arthur Pitt, Clement Marshall, Dan Bouchard, Elliot Mobby, Henny Hebishaw, Awesome Case, Crore, Stefan Primal, Jonky Bong, Owen Milne, Zach Cruz, Francis Fortin, Sebastian Colorado, Phil Ulrich, Jeff Bennett, I Feel Fine, Jay Vero, Chris Watt, James Coulson Wright, Sven Vazan, Nathan Hutner, Izzy Stardust, Andrew Jolly, Nathan Durant, Spray, Astrolad, Alec, Kat Shen, Shane Lilly. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you in the next one.